Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to Chelsea Fan TV and welcome to another episode of the Chelsea Fan TV podcast. First things first, guys, make sure you smash the likes on the video, subscribe to Chelsea Fan TV if you haven't done so already, and make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below on this episode. And unfortunately, it wasn't to be 4 wins on the spin for Graham Potter's Chelsea, with a frustrating 2-2 draw against Sean Dyche's relegated and threatened Everton, which means we still haven't hit that 40-point mark yet this season heading into the international break. I mean, it's a frustrating afternoon at Stamford Bridge. Performance was okay, did more than enough to win, but obviously individual errors from Koulibaly and Kepa cost us the win, which kind of leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth. Kind of walked away from the game feeling like we'd lost that one, even though we'd picked up a point. I mean, Lewis, from yourself, mate, much the same as me. Do you feel like we did play well enough to win, but individual errors cost us the win, basically?
Yeah, basically. I felt everything, not even individual errors, partly the manager too, mostly the manager, but everything up until the first goal was fine. Like, we weren't finishing, but that's typical Chelsea. We were controlling the game. Whenever Everton came forward, we had them. It was a very straightforward performance from us. As soon as the first goal came in, all we should have done was just kept doing what we were doing. And instead, we bring on Gallagher, we take off Pulisic, we go into a much more defensively minded mindset. And I don't know why we did that against one of the most defensive managers in the league. Their focus isn't really on attack. I always think, like, if they start coming forward after a goal, they leave more space in behind for us to expose. You bring on the likes of Mudryk or Madueke, they will thrive off that. Instead, he brought on Gallagher. He didn't bring on anyone until the penalty went in, and then it was Loftus-Cheek, Chukwuemeka. Chalobah I don't mind because Farmer was injured. But it's the game management for me. The game management completely killed us. The individual mistakes we'll get to, and it's the same players that have been kind of just showing their errors in games again, and it's just Chelsea. But the biggest thing to me was Graham Potter. His game management cost us again.
Could you argue from a hypothetical point of view as well that actually the Gallagher sub and whatnot, we've seen the Gallagher sub in the last few games and it's worked pretty well. So I suppose from a managerial perspective, could you perhaps argue that, well, this sub's worked pretty well for the last couple of games. I may well continue to do it. And the shape still stayed the same. Yes, it's a more defensive substitution. And yes, he's a different type of player to Pulisic, but he was still kind of playing in that sort of midfield / left side kind of hybrid role. It's a different, yeah, for sure. But you know, I suppose you could look at it that way. But I also guess the other substitutions, if you look at it from an analysis point of view, is that kind of Loftus-Cheek and Chukwuemeka coming on for what Kovacic and I think one of them actually came on for Felix. Not ideal, but a lot of them were like for like subs. I know not the most exciting substitutions, and it does invite. It kind of changes the mindset of the team, and it invites unnecessary pressure onto yourself. For sure. I don't think there's any arguing that. But I mean, I look at the substitution and I think, yes, it's perhaps had a negative impact on the game when they're overly cautious and you'd like him to be more pragmatic with a Mudryk, for example. But you could also say that, you know, we could have easily made the proactive subs that we wanted him to make, and we still could have made those individual mistakes, if you get what I'm saying. So, like, what I mean is the substitutions, for me, in my opinion, didn't make us make those individual errors. We could have made those individual errors regardless of the subs we made, if that makes sense.
I get it, but the first one I don't really hold accountable to Potter because it's like a corner kick and everything. But everything after that is like we played much more defensive. We were sitting further back and we had much more defensively minded players. And that changes the whole, the whole mindset of the squad. And I feel like that's what brought across those errors. The Kepa one, that's just on him. We know his problem with his wrists and everything. But Koulibaly on the right-hand side, where I don't know where Loftus-Cheek was positioned. I don't know where the likes of Chalobah was positioned. Or even in the case of the fact that if we had played more attacking players, we're winning by more goals. If that mistake happens, it doesn't necessarily mean we draw the game. It could mean, oh, it's now 3-1 instead of 3-0. It's a bit annoying, but we've won the game and we've got our 3 points because the mindset was a lot better as a result of that. The problem is it was a defensive mindset.
You know, I get that, but I also look at anything like football's fine margins. Like the last few games, like Leicester, I know we're more goals up at Leicester, but Leicester, even Dortmund and Leeds, we made pretty much the same subs, or they were defensively minded substitutions, and the result was on the right side. I guess it just goes to show that football's a results-based business. You don't get the win, you drop points, and everyone's having a go at the subs. We win that game. No one really says anything about the subs. So I guess if you look at it in a bigger picture, I guess people are frustrated because we didn't win. If we'd won, it doesn't get talked about. And what I would say as well is that, defensive substitutions to see a game out, regardless of opposition for a second, like that's not a new thing. Like that happens all the time. I get it though, from a point that you shouldn't be shutting up shop with half an hour to go against a team that's battling for survival at the bottom of the table. I totally get that, and that is not what
shouldn't be at 1-0.
Yeah,
it shouldn't be at 1-0 against a team like Everton. Yeah. If it's a team better than us, fair enough, depending on the time that we take the lead. But relegation friend Everton, and we want to sit back as soon as we're 1-0 up. And it's not like Leeds, where we had no win in 7 games and there's no confidence, there's no belief. And I kind of don't blame Potter for just trying to hold on to 1 goal, because we haven't seen a goal in about 5 games by that point. It's different now. We've won 3 games in a row. There's a bit more confidence. We're making more chances. Our attackers look a lot better. Play to their strengths. Like, why just sit back again at home against an Everton side that I think have had a terrible away record? They're in the relegation battle. They have to have had a terrible away record. The point still stands. Like, a Dyche team isn't known for attacking, so why be worried about their attack? The thing is their defense. We've broken them once. They're going to be weaker. Go again. Don't sit back and try and defend it.
And the frustrating thing is as well is that, Everton, other than the goals, which were 2 mistakes on our behalf, they offered absolutely nothing. It's not like they were kind of knocking at the door, creating a lot of chances, and you think, maybe we need to go a bit more defensive and try and stop the onslaught. They did nothing. They didn't offer a threat all game. You know a Sean Dyche team is going to be decent from set plays, and that's about it. They're not renowned for decent build-up play, creating a lot of opportunities. It's going to be set plays where they get the majority of their goals or taking advantage of mistakes from the opposition, and that's where both the goals came from. I mean, let's move on to those mistakes. Let's start with the first goal from the corner. Obviously, what did you make of it? Because there's been accusations over Kepa, and we'll come on to the goalkeeping situation a little bit later on. But I feel, having seen it back, he's almost in no man's land. He's not commanded the box by trying to come for the ball, and he's just stayed on his line. I mean, there's no way of telling if he'd kind of been a bit more forthright in coming out to try and claim that cross, whether he would have stopped it. But it's kind of indecision making in the box. And from a Chelsea perspective, that's such a poor goal to give away.
Yeah, we haven't been great at set pieces this season. It feels like it's reared its head again. I don't know what we were doing. It was like, I think, was Koulibaly marking, not Koulibaly, it was Kovacic marking the Corre, and then Koulibaly and Fofana both went for the first player that took the cross.
Yeah, I think so. It was a mess. And it's like, and Havertz tries to hook it off the line, and obviously it's in, and it's frustrating, and it's a really bad goal to give away. You talk about our record from kind of conceding goals at set pieces. It's not the best. I think we've let in, I think it might be 7. I mean, I could have just completely made that up, but I swear I've seen that somewhere. We might have let in 7 goals this season from set pieces, which, all right, doesn't sound like a lot over 26 games, but for a club like Chelsea, you shouldn't really be conceding that many goals from set pieces. Like, if the delivery is good and it's a great header, fair play. But most of the time, we're conceding scrappy goals from set pieces, and that just shouldn't be happening. And, I don't know if we've changed the way we defend from set plays, what we're doing with the set piece coach at the moment, but there just seems to be panic in the box when the ball comes in from set pieces. And that's something that massively needs to change. In terms of the last goal, the equaliser from Ellis Sims, his first goal for Everton. This guy was on loan at Sunderland until January. It's a catalogue of errors from my perspective. First thing, the kick from Kepa to begin with. Why is he not just launching that as far down the pitch as possible? Is my first thing. Second thing is Enzo Fernandez has let whoever it is in the midfield have all the time in the world to play that pass through to Sims. Thirdly, Chalobah's well out of position. And then Fofana just gets absolutely spun and ruined by a 19-year-old kid that was on loan in the Championship until January. And then you've got Kepa, who it's a weak shot. He gets a hand to it and it goes in. It was just error after error. I mean, look, the main errors are Koulibaly and Kepa, but the first two things enable those major errors to happen. It was just a catalogue of mistakes, and it was just pathetic defending, if we're being honest.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what Koulibaly was doing on that one. And it's like, I think for me, I've been talking about patience a lot with him, but when he's the 31-year-old and he's looking like the rookie alongside two young defenders in Fofana and Badiashile, who look like the experienced, calm and composed centre-backs that we've been aching for, it's like, well, what's the point? Like, you can't be making mistakes like that at this level. You can't be getting done by prospects. Like, no disrespect to the player, but it's like, I genuinely never heard of him before that moment. And for the likes of Koulibaly, that should be your bread and butter. And it's like the same Koulibaly from old. It's like, okay, cool. So there are still mistakes in your game. The thing with Kepa, the thing with Koulibaly is that the further back you go, the worse your mistakes are in terms of the consequences of it.
Yeah.
As an attacker, you can miss chances, you can lose the ball all you want, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference in terms of the opposition. They might score off it once or twice, but that's about it. Because the further back you go, you have to be flawless. You have to do your job perfectly. If you make a mistake at the back, you're conceding. 9 times out of 10, not 9, 6, 7 times out of 10, you're conceding. If you're a goalkeeper, it's even higher. If you make a mistake 9 times out of 10, you're conceding. And we've got two people who are very error prone, and you can't be at that level. Kepa, I've already said, like, he's a good number 2 if you really want him in that position. But in terms of where we want to be, he's not good enough. He's having a great season by his standards, but we're also 10th. Says a lot. If we're talking about a team that's top of the league, I don't think Kepa's in that sort of squad. I don't think you can reach that level. Koulibaly, I'm not seeing it. And he's not young enough to give him a lot of time. Fofana, Badiashile, I thought Badiashile would be the way Koulibaly's been. And I would have said give Badiashile a year or 2 because he's young. And that's fair. I feel like you might need a bit of time to grow into your role. Koulibaly, though, it's like, you ain't got long. Can't wait.
Yeah, it's the frustrating thing is actually like, since Silva's been out, he's kind of got his act together and he's taken on that role in the middle of the back three, and he has done pretty well. And you know what? He wasn't actually that bad against Everton until the mistake. But obviously, when you make mistakes like that and it costs you a goal and it costs you the win, that's the only thing that's going to be spoken about. And he does have those errors in his game, and he needs to iron those out desperately. And as I think you said, I think I've mentioned it as well after the game, that when you hear people saying, "Oh, we haven't missed Thiago Silva because we've been winning games," that's why Silva plays, because he doesn't make errors like that. And that's the difference at the moment between the likes of Koulibaly and why Thiago Silva will play, is because despite how well Koulibaly's done in recent weeks, Silva just does not make those errors, and it's as simple as that. It really is. But in terms of Kepa and the goalkeeping situation, there's been a lot of kind of talk, a lot of links over the last few days, and even before then, about Chelsea looking for a new goalkeeper in the summer. How do you view it? Because there's been links with the likes of David Raya at Brentford, Meslier from Leeds, etc. I look at it and I just think, if Chelsea are going to challenge for the big trophies, like getting back to winning a Premier League, despite how well Kepa's done for us this season, and he has done well considering where he's come from, the reality of the situation is that we need to upgrade that position if we're going to be serious about challenging for the Premier League, because the reality of the situation is that Kepa costs us more points than he's going to save us. And that's just the way it is. And that is a position that can definitely be upgraded. But you look at the names linked, mate, and so far for me, there's not really any that represent the significant upgrade that we're looking for in that number 1 position. David Raya on a free transfer from Brentford. All right, it's done well for Brentford, but that's a sideways move. He's not better than Kepa. He's on a level. I look at Kobel at Dortmund, who's been linked as well. You think, good keeper, got potential, but currently no better than Kepa, in my opinion. Do you think the fact there's a lack of options out there is also a bit of an issue? Because you look at out-and-out number one keepers that would make a big difference. Your Oblaks, your Ter Stegens, maybe Mike Maignan at AC Milan. These guys are going to cost a lot of money, and they're going to be pretty hard to get. Where
Maybe
do you...
Ter Stegen won't be, depending on
maybe not. But I mean, you look at goalkeepers, and goalkeepers is a position where there's not that many world-class goalkeepers, and there's not that many that are available either. I mean, what would you do with the goalkeeping situation in the Suns? We've got two keepers that arguably could both be sold.
I'd still like Kepa, keep him until another option comes in. Mendy's got to go anyway. He's not re-signing any contract. I think he's rejected multiple from what we've heard. He doesn't fit Potter's style of play. He's not really a modern day goalkeeper either. He can't play the ball out the back, and the shot stopping's just disappeared over the last year. So Mendy, just let him go. That's fine. Completely okay with that. Kepa, I don't mind him being a number two. I think he's good for the dressing room. I think he's one of those leaders that, to be fair, you probably would be better off keeping, unless a good enough offer comes in, which I'll be real, wouldn't be too much. But Kepa is more keep until another option comes in. Mendy, just let him go. Honestly, just let him go. Safe for 2021 and everything, but he's one of the players we need to move on from. I wouldn't mind a Diogo Costa. David Raya, I think, has been good for Brentford. He'll give us a lot of better distribution. Other than that, no one really stands out to me out of all the names we've been linked with. So I kind of get you on that.
Another thing that I'd have thought about the other day is that, do you think it could be worth going down the route of, say, like more of a veteran keeper for, say, 1 or 2 seasons until maybe the goalkeeping landscape changes a little bit? And I'm talking about someone like maybe a Keylor Navas, who's currently on loan at Nottingham Forest from PSG, who's a very good goalkeeper, or even Manuel Neuer, who obviously still out injured, but is fallen out with Bayern quite clearly and could be on the move in the summer. Do you think that a move for a more veteran keeper for, say, 1 or 2 years could be worth doing as well, potentially? I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen or there's been any links, but I mean, I don't think that's a completely ridiculous idea.
Depends on who's for sale, though. Like, we've spoken about Oblak to Stegen. I don't see either of them going. I think you're looking for a younger goalkeeper, and you have to take another risk with that one, but it does fit with what Chelsea are trying to do. They're trying to look for young goalkeepers. To be fair, our best goalkeepers, we had them when they were young. Check. Courtois. So I don't mind us making that risk again. The problem is Kepa wasn't really like, oh, we've scouted him for years. He's a great prospect. We've wanted him for a while, and I'm glad we've got him. It's no, we tried to get Alisson for ages.
Yeah.
We were being stingy about 70 million. Then we told Courtois, oh, we're going to have to keep you for another year. And he said, fuck that, and then didn't bother turning up for training. So he got bent over a barrel by Athletic Bilbao. It's a bit different. Like, if we're scouting like a Diogo Costa and we think this is the guy to go forward with, this is the guy to have as our number one, fair enough. That's fine by me. I don't mind us going for a younger face.
What do you think of someone like Meslier, the young Leeds goalkeeper? He's quite highly regarded. Again, I think he's only maybe 22 or 23. I've looked at him and think, I don't know. There's potential there, but I mean, in terms of a goalkeeper, that sort of age, that's so young, and that's really quite inexperienced in terms of a keeper. I think he's got, a lot of potential, could be a very good goalkeeper. Obviously, there's a lot to do because he's playing for a side that's struggling down the bottom. I think there's potential there, but I get that he's in the age bracket of what Chelsea are looking to do. But I don't. I still think that represents quite a big gamble as well. But then I guess at the time signing Kepa was quite a gamble because I'll be real, I'd never heard of him before we signed him.
Meslier doesn't really wow me too much, and the fact he's in the Premier League as well and he's not really doing that, it doesn't really stand out to me. I know you could say like Leeds and stuff, I get where they are in the league, but there's other mid-table goalkeepers that are shining for their clubs and you see the impact that they have. I don't really see that with Meslier in the same level. Like, even at relegation friend teams, you have sides like, you remember Sunderland when they went down, they had Jordan Pickford, who was just doing a madness every game, just protecting the scoreline from me like 4 or 5 or some craziness. Don't really hear that with Meslier. So I don't know. It might just be because I don't watch a lot of Leeds, but doesn't really sound like the sort of name that wows me. It just have to be a Vivell signing for me to back it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'll be real. I honestly think I still think Kepa will be the number one keeper next season. I think we'll obviously move Mendy on. I think that's pretty clear. Slanina, I think, still too young. It's going to be too soon for him to be like a number two. He'll definitely go out on a loan somewhere. And then, yeah, okay, David Raya could come in, but that'll just be as competition for Kepa. That wouldn't be as a replacement, in my opinion. But then you'd have to question, well, why would you swap playing for Brentford week in, week out to come and be Chelsea's number two? I don't really know. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. But I do think that Kepa probably will be the number one still next season. But I don't think it's probably a massive priority for Chelsea. They'd like to do it, I'd imagine. But a holding midfield player and a centre forward is far more pressing in terms of business that does need to be done in the summer. I mean, maybe on a slightly more positive thing, a player that arrived in January, Enzo Fernandez. I think you said it after the Leicester game. People talked about all that money being spent on him whilst we were in negotiations and whatnot. No one mentions that price tag now. No one's saying anything about it because he's been absolutely superb. And do you feel that we'll look back in time and see that as actually a bargain, which sounds ridiculous to say for something we spent £106 million on a player as a bargain, but I mean, the way that he's just fitted into the side, fitted into the league, I mean, it's like he's been here for years. And I suppose the top players don't require an adaptation period.
Yeah, he's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I can't wait until we get a DM and we get another 8 around him and we got a serious midfield and he's just got all the license to roam forward and just cook. Because his passing is crazy. The further forward you put, doesn't matter where you put him, to be honest. But the quality of passing in the final third from this guy is on a level that I don't think I've seen in ages. And I know we're going to create hella chances. I can't wait till next season. Also because this season is just utter trash. But Enzo, with hopefully Lavia and another midfielder in there potentially, I can't wait. I can't wait because a good midfield changes everything. Not just for Chelsea, for any team. You look at the likes of Croatia, for example. Overall, their team ain't really that mad. But you look at the midfield, changes everything. If you got a good midfield, a world-class midfield, you can beat anybody. Anybody.
Yeah. I mean, you only have to look at the teams that have won the big trophies over the years. And the one common thing is a world-class holding midfield player, minimum. You know, Liverpool with Fabinho the year they won the title, City with Rodri, etc. Us winning the Champions League with Kante doing a madness. Like a big like a world-class six is an absolute must. So yeah, I think there's definitely promise ahead for the midfield and the midfield revamp. But Enzo's just one piece. We probably need 2 more pieces of the puzzle to complete it. But I do think if we can address that in the summer, then next season with a fully functioning midfield, that the prospects of how good this team can be drastically changes, and we should be able to control a lot more games and whatnot. But let's see what happens. But Enzo has been outstanding, and he certainly looks like he's worth every penny. I mean, mate, I can picture it. Those kind of like the British media had those articles, those headlines ready, those flop articles, flop headlines, like anticipating that he's not going to deliver. He's not put a foot wrong since he's arrived, which is quite something, really, to come mid-season. This is a guy that's spent 6 months playing in Portugal, and obviously he was in South America prior to that. So it's quite some rise, and fair play to him. I think we knew he was going to be decent, but mate, are you surprised at how well he's done so quickly?
A little bit, only because of our record with big signings. You'll always be a little bit nervous and think, please don't let this be the guy that flops. But no, I expect him to maybe need a little bit of time to adjust. And to be fair, he kind of did struggle in a couple of games at the start. But his passing, his aggression, his tackling, his positioning, awareness, everything you want from a midfielder, he's got it. And yeah, I didn't expect him to be this good this early, but he lived up to all the hype. And I rarely say that about a signing. And that just gives me full trust and belief in Todd Boehly, Vivell, the rest of the infrastructure. I know I got faith in them. That's why I know our long-term future is fine. If they go in for a player that I don't really have, like if they say, I want Meslier, don't care what anyone says, I want Illan Meslier at my club, I'll be like, fine. Whatever I don't watch him enough. If you think he's good enough, then he's good enough.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think there is that trust in there now that with those guys in place, with that structure in place, that, do you know what, even if it's not what you personally would do, you'd think, well, you know what, these guys have proven that the players that they scout and the players they look at are good, and they've had a successful track record. I'm going to back it. And it makes you believe in the process. It makes you buy into kind of what they're doing. To round out, let's just throw it forward. So obviously we've got a 2-week international break, which is boring, as we all know. But when we come back, mate, April's a madness. 9 games. I think the United away might be rescheduled because they progressed in the FA Cup, so maybe one less.
You know what we're going to have? We're going to have City away and then United away. We're going to go Manchester. Yeah. I'm calling it now. It's going to be bad.
we come back. We got Aston Villa. We got Aston Villa at home and Liverpool at home, followed by Wolves away, and then we've got the Real Madrid ties as well. Just briefly, I don't think we covered it last time. Champions League draw, Real Madrid 3rd season in a row, and then if we were to progress past them, it's then City or Bayern. So really, we got essentially the worst scenario possible in the Champions League draw. How do you feel about it, and how do you kind of see our chances in the Madrid games?
I'm just so jealous of Napoli because they had the literal bracket that I wanted. Give me AC, Inter, and Benfica, and they got that. And it's jarring because that would have been my only way where I would have said, you know what, anyone who believes in number 3, fair enough, because that is a route to the final right there. Napoli have it. I think they're basically already there unless they bottle it. With us, though, I don't know. I didn't believe in number 3 anyway, so I'm not even that pissed about it. But it's like, seriously, fucking Madrid again. There was 3 easier options for us. I don't think we're going to go through. I won't lie to you. I think we'll go down swinging. Depends on what level, to be honest. Because I don't think Madrid are going to underestimate us like they did in the second leg. We gave them a scare that I don't think any other team's given them. Even the likes of Man City, PSG in that run, they weren't shook like they were when we went 3-0 up. I just don't know if we can do that again. Tuchel's the main reason why we did that. We've got Graham Potter now. So it's like, you know what? Quarters, fair enough. I didn't think we'd make it this far, so I'm not going to be too annoyed about it. It's the best team in the world. Is what it is. We got 2 games.
I mean, you look at Madrid, though, and I fully get that Champions League, they're a completely different proposition. But you look at them in La Liga this season, they're 12 points behind an average Barcelona side. They're absolutely nowhere. And yeah, they've got quality. Benzema, we know Modric, Tchouaméni, Camavinga and whatnot. But I do think you can get at them defensively. And we've proven over the last 2 seasons we've played them. We obviously beat them en route at Porto. And then last season, I actually think we were better than them over the 2 legs, but a Mendy horror show basically cost us the time. I'm not saying like we're going to easily win them or we're going to go through, but I don't think we should be as scared of them as some people think, because I don't think this Madrid side is that amazing, if we're being honest. It's got an aging midfield. Yes, Modric and Kroos are still doing bits and whatnot, and they got Vinicius Jr. and things like that. But I think defensively, you can get at them. Rudiger's not done that well there. I don't think Militao's amazing. Carvajal at fullback, Carvajal and Mendy, you can certainly target in the fullback areas. So I think we've got the quality to cause them some damage. I guess it just depends what sort of Chelsea turns up, really. That's the big question.
It's not happening, my friend.
You don't think so?
I see what you're trying to do, and I respect the optimism. I really do. But we shouldn't go into games like this being shook. But I'm looking at like, nah, we're getting battered. We're getting absolutely battered. That midfield is going to toy with us. Vinicius, Benzema. I know they haven't been great in La Liga, but they've had seasons where they've not been great in La Liga, and they've still torched the Champions League. They're just built different in that competition. I don't think we're going to go through 2 legs against Real Madrid without individual errors that will cost us. And if it's not that, I have to trust Graham Potter managing us throughout that. So, and also the amount of players that could be suspended before the second leg.
There's a lot of yellow cards.
Modric, James, Kepa, and like most of our defense, basically. I think Cucurella as well. It's not happening. It's not. I have to see it. I really have to see it first. We go to Real Madrid and we don't get battered. If the aggregate is by at least a goal, then you know what? Maybe we could cause some chaos at the bridge. Stamford Bridge is a little bit different on those nights, and I do think maybe in one game we can get them. But
yeah,
I don't know with this team. We can't even beat fucking Everton.
And then if
South
we do
Africa have done the double on us.
And then if we do a madness and get through, we've got the joys of City or Bayern Munich to follow. So you know it's a tough one.
Hey, if we even make it to the semis, I won't care. I just won't care. If we get knocked out, I'll be like, whatever, man. This team made the fucking semis of a Champions League, and they're the worst Chelsea squad I've ever watched. Cool.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad, would it, to make semi-finals and finish 8th or 9th? You know, it's it just goes
whatever. To get more money in the bank. Might get to say goodbye to Hazard at the bridge. We never got to do that properly.
Mate, he won't even play.
Doing Courtois.
Hazard don't even play. It's mad. He's that's mad. How literally.
If Ancelotti don't give him fucking sympathy minutes, and
there'll be no sympathy minutes
on aggregate.
Yeah,
I will be fuming. He didn't even do that for Liverpool. It's like, you have a personal vendetta against this guy if you've not washed us in the tie and you don't bring him on for a couple minutes.
Yeah, nothing that's fair. We'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, there's a lot of football to be played between those Champions League ties, a lot of Premier League games to come. Obviously, international break now. Chelsea players go away. Hopefully, no one comes back injured. Obviously, we already got Fofana injured. He pulled out the France squad. So we just pray for no injuries or any serious injuries for any members of the squad. But yeah, guys, looks like a good point to round out this episode. Make sure you smash the likes on the video, subscribe to Chelsea Fan TV, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll catch you again in another episode soon.